The Galactic Council chamber fell silent the moment they announced the sentence. 7-year-old Ethan Cross stood in the center of the circular hall, surrounded by alien delegates who towered over him like monuments carved from alien stone. His hands were cuffed in luminite restraints designed for adult war criminals, not a child who barely reached the waist of the nearest guard. The hybrid anomaly known as Ethan Cross, intoned Council Elder Vreth, her mandibles clicking with bureaucratic finality, is hereby exiled to Sector 09. Designation, Kareth. Classification, Deathworld, Category 7. Category 7. There were only 9 categories. Category 9 was a black hole. Not one delegate objected. Not one voice rose in that chamber to ask, "He is a child." They simply filed out, robes whispering across marble floors, their relief palpable. The half-human anomaly who had survived 3 assassination attempts in the capital's own halls was now someone else's problem, or rather, no one's problem. Kareth's problem. The drop pod hit the soil of Kareth like a thrown stone. Ethan pulled himself free of the wreckage, bleeding from his temple, one boot missing. The jungle around him was nothing like Earth's jungles, nothing like the manicured embassy parks he'd grown up in. It breathed. The trees exhaled something violet and thick. Creatures moved in the canopy, creatures with too many limbs, too many eyes, moving with a patience that felt like predation. He had nothing. The council had ensured that. No rations. No weapons. No communicator. A 7-year-old boy, alone, on a world where even the grass was carnivorous. He did what any rational being would do. He cried for exactly 4 minutes. Then he stopped, wiped his face with his dirty sleeve, and looked around with his mother's eyes, dark, calculating, endlessly patient, and his father's jaw, set hard against the world. Okay, he thought. Where's water? 3 years passed. The council received no distress signal from Kareth. They received no signal at all. After the standard waiting period, Elder Vreth officially closed the file on Ethan Cross and moved on to other matters. This was their first mistake. The scout ship arrived in Kareth's orbit as a routine mapping exercise. Lieutenant Sarah Voss, a young Viran explorer with silver-streaked antenna, was reviewing atmospheric data when her sensor array exploded with alerts. She leaned forward, antenna twitching. "Commander," she said slowly, "I'm reading a structured settlement in Sector 09's northern basin. Population, 1 human. Age, approximately 10 years. Her commander, a veteran named Drath, grunted. Impossible. Nothing survives Kareth's apex predators. Certainly not a human child. Sir." Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "I'm also reading something else. Sharing coordinates with the human. Something very large." She pulled up the visual feed from the orbital drone. The entire bridge crew went silent. Ethan Cross sat cross-legged on a fallen log, eating something that looked like a blue mango, reading from a battered data tablet he'd salvaged from his crashed pod. His camp was a masterwork of primitive engineering, elevated sleeping platforms, rain collectors carved from broadleaf plants, perimeter lines strung with noisemakers fashioned from bones and shells. And behind him, curled around the camp like a living fortress wall, lay Raxor-Thorn. Raxor-Thorn was the reason Kareth was a Category 7 Deathworld. He was 12 meters of scaled nightmare, 6 limbs, each ending in claws that could shear steel, a crest of bioluminescent spines that pulsed red when he was agitated, and a jaw structure capable of generating enough force to crack the hull of a light freighter. Xenobiologists had theorized about his species for decades. No researcher had ever survived long enough to study one up close. Raxor-Thorn was currently asleep, his enormous scarred head resting approximately 2 feet behind Ethan's left shoulder, one massive foreclaw draped possessively over the perimeter of the camp. As the drone hummed overhead, one enormous golden eye cracked open. Raxor-Thorn regarded the drone with the lazy contempt of an apex predator who has never once doubted his position at the top of the food chain. Then he looked at the boy. The boy glanced up from his tablet, waved at the drone, and went back to reading. The first contact team that descended was prepared for a feral child. They were not prepared for what actually happened. Ethan Cross walked toward the landing shuttle with the unhurried confidence of someone who had never been in a situation he couldn't handle, because for 3 years, every situation had tried to kill him and failed. He was lean and tanned and scarred on his forearms, and his dark eyes held a quality the Viran psychologist would later describe in her report as aged beyond measurement. Behind him, on a ridge 40 meters back, Raxerthorn sat on his haunches and watched the shuttle with absolutely motionless, golden-eyed focus. Lieutenant Sarah Voss descended the ramp. She stopped 6 meters from the boy. Her hand moved instinctively to her sidearm. "Don't," said Ethan, without looking at her hand. His voice was calm. "He sees that as threat posture. You really don't want him to decide you're a threat." Sarah's hand went very still. The apex predator. You've tamed it?" Ethan finally looked at her, and there was something in that look, something patient and tired and very, very old for a 10-year-old face. "Raxer isn't tamed," he said carefully, as if explaining something to someone who'd used the wrong word in a very important sentence. "He's my partner. There's a difference." He paused. "I helped him once, when he was injured. He decided I was worth keeping alive. We negotiated from there." "You negotiated?" "He's intelligent. Most people never noticed because they were too busy running." Ethan looked back at the ridge. Raxerthorn's crest spines pulsed once, slowly, softly, and went still again. Ethan turned back to Sarah. "Why are you here?" She hesitated. "The Galactic Council, there are questions about your exile. There may be a review." "Good." The word came out flat and certain. Not angry. Not eager. Just decided. "I have questions for the Council too." He glanced back one more time at Raxerthorn, 12 meters of apex terror, sitting patient as a mountain, watching his human with ancient golden eyes. "We both do." The Council file on Ethan Cross was reopened 6 weeks later. The motion to do so was not brought by any sense of guilt or moral reckoning. It was brought because the scout team's report contained a footnote that had circulated through the right offices, past the right desks, and caused a very specific kind of silence in a very specific kind of powerful room. The footnote read: "Subject Ethan Cross appears to have established full communicative rapport with Kareth Apex Lifeform, species designation, Thorn Class Ravager, previously considered non-sapient. Subject disputes this classification. Based on field observation, subject may be correct. The lifeform in question has indicated, through behavior and response, that it considers itself bound to the subject. It has further indicated, through demonstration on a Category 3 predator that approached the camp, that it considers threats to the subject to be threats to itself. We recommend the Council bear this in mind before any decisions are made regarding the subject's future status. The lifeform is currently en route to the capital with the subject. It would not be left behind. When the transport ship docked at Capital Station, the diplomatic corps were ready with speeches and committees and carefully worded apologies. Ethan Cross walked down the ramp in salvaged boots and a Kareth fiber jacket he'd sewn himself, carrying his battered tablet under one arm. Raxerthorn descended behind him, golden eyes sweeping the docking bay with calm, territorial certainty, crest spines shifting slowly through amber and gold. The speeches did not happen. The committees dispersed very quickly. The carefully worded apologies became, in the end, a great deal less careful and a great deal more sincere. Because whatever the Galactic Council had expected when they dropped a 7-year-old child onto a Category 7 Deathworld with nothing but the clothes on his back. They had not expected him to come back. And they had absolutely not expected him to bring it with him. Humanity, the galaxy was slowly learning, had a gift. Not for conquest. Not for war. For something far more unsettling, the ability to look at the most terrifying thing in the room and think, quietly, patiently, stubbornly. I wonder if we could be friends.